Bloomington Park Maintenance's Paul Edwardson explained it's critical that work isn't performed on ash trees during the summer.
I think an important thing to get across to people is that it's very different than Dutch elm disease or oak wilt disease, which unfortunately we're familiar with from many years of dealing with it. Ash trees is a tree that we really want to leave alone during the active period, which is May, June, July, and August. In other words, we don't want to be trimming them, we don't want to be removing them unless we absolutely have to. And then if we do that, we want to do it in the proper way. We don't want to be dragging, so to speak, the emerald ash borer bug around to areas where it's not. And so to prevent that from possibly happening, we just don't want to do anything with ash trees at all during the summer.
Sure, and that's a different mentality for sure than, like you described, those other diseases. Really an important change to kind of get through all of our heads, people who aren't as familiar with it, I suppose, to get that out of there. Now, there's a quarantine in effect for the metro area. Maybe that's the next step we talk about, is the fact that it's not only a bad idea, but it's against the law, really, to take those trees out of Hennepin or Ramsey County.
Right. Hennepin and Ramsey County are the quarantine area, and ash wood for sure, but even other hardwoods, once they are in the quarantine area, they basically have to stay in the quarantine area unless they have been dealt with according to the requirements of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture as far as disposal and those kinds of things. So really the safest and the easiest way to explain it is, once it's in the quarantine area, it needs to stay in. It can move around in the quarantine area, healthy wood. We certainly don't want to move diseased wood around, but it can't leave the quarantine area.
Sure. And it's, I think, important, you were explaining that the emerald ash borer can actually jump out of the bed of your pickup truck if you're moving diseased wood around. It's easy for this bug to really move and spread, and it's not something you're going to notice when it leaves your vehicle or leaves your property or leaves anything.
Yeah, it certainly can be transported by us on vehicles, on firewood, other woods. It flies too, so it can move on its own. So what we want to do by not working with trimming or removing ash trees in the summer is we don't want to disturb those trees that might have the emerald ash borer in them. Leave it there for a habitat, and then when the critical period is over in the fall and the winter, then we can more safely deal with that wood, transport it, get rid of it, so the next year we've dealt with it the best that we possibly can, and we've done everything we can to try to reduce or eliminate the spread of it.
Sure, and this is really an important thing, because there are ash trees. We're standing in front of a bunch of ash trees, but there are ash trees all around, and this bug kills them.
Unfortunately, there is nothing we can do to stop it. We're hoping, and we're taking our cues here in the city from the Department of Agriculture, but the hope is that we can slow it down and control its spread. But at this time, there really isn't anything we can do to stop it. I think one of the very revealing facts is that 30 or 40 years ago, when Dutch elm disease hit, there were an estimated 150 or so million elm trees in Minnesota. What we're talking about with ash trees now is over 900 million estimated ash trees, and at present all of those are at risk at some point in the future of dying from emerald ash borer.
Sure, and of course here in Bloomington and also in the metro area, we love our trees and our parks, and whether the trees are on private property or public, we want to keep them alive. Let's talk about the bug itself. It's essentially it's a very shallow in the bark of the tree, or it's right in the hardwood of the tree. Maybe you can explain. We've seen the billboards, they were out last year, but it's another reminder of just what this bug actually does to the trees.
It's fairly small in size. It's only about half the width of a penny. It's generally quite emerald green. That's where it gets its name. But when it goes through a metamorphosis as insects do, and it goes into the tree, it goes through the bark and into the hardwood of the tree, and so it's approximately an inch in depth, and that's where it starts killing the tree. It starts feeding on the tree and creates a situation where the tree cannot move water and nutrients through the tree, and it actually kind of starves it and chokes it. So you won't see it on the outside of the tree very often, and even the little D holes, which are one of the characteristics when the bug comes out of the tree, those are very difficult to find also. And so many trees that may look like they have emerald ash borer because they're half dead or not very healthy, they may in fact not have it, and what seems to be a perfectly healthy tree could in fact have the emerald ash borer. So it's a difficult disease, tree disease to diagnose, and we just have to try to stay on top of it, and when we think we might have a case of it, we need to inspect it as best we can, and along with the help of the Department of Agriculture.
Sure, and that's what you were saying is, we talked about this the end of the year last year, that it's a really hard disease to keep track of because it might not show signs for 5 years. A tree could be infected for 5 years before you really know that there's a problem. But what if residents are concerned that maybe a tree is infected or diseased? Who can they call, or what should they be looking for at least with emerald ash borer?
Well, I think the things that you want to look for in your tree is certainly declining health. That can be one of the symptoms of a number of diseases. And ash trees, unfortunately, are not only affected by the emerald ash borer. There are 3 or 4 native ash borers that also attack and do some of the same kinds of things, although they don't kill the ash tree, but they certainly, after a time, can help reduce its vigor. So if you've got an ash tree that's looking a little peaked, that could be one of the things. If you've got woodpeckers pecking on the tree and you can see woodpecker damage, that certainly is another possible characteristic, or bark splits. I mean, noticeable splits in the bark. If those kinds of things are out there on your ash trees or ash trees in the city, we would want people to call our Public Works Department and let us know that, give us a location, and we'll do up a work order and have one of our state certified tree inspectors come out and take a look.
I suppose that's the next step too, is if you have any questions, people can give you a call?
People can certainly give us a call. Also, our city webpage, we are constantly updating information, and as a matter of fact, just today, we got the newest and the greatest and the most current information from the Department of Agriculture, and so we'll be putting that information on our webpage, and also links to the Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Department of Natural Resources. So there'll be a lot of information available, both specifically on the city webpage and links that we provide.
Sure. Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The city's website is www.ci.bloomington.mn.us. Enter keyword EAB, or emerald ash borer, to see the most current updates.